I have seen a lot in my time. Lived through wars, watched the world change, and felt the weight of every year settle into my bones. But let me tell you something. There's one thing that scares me more than any of it. Falling. When you are young, you trip, laugh, and get back up. But when you are over 70, a fall is not just a fall. It is a warning. A whisper from your body telling you something is not right. Ignore it, and you might not get back up at all. I learned this the hard way. A few years ago, I was out in my garden, doing what I had done for decades. Just tending to my tomatoes. Nothing unusual. Then suddenly, my foot caught on the edge of a brick. Before I knew it, I was on the ground. At first, I thought, just a little tumble. But when I tried to stand, pain shot through my hip like fire. That fall changed everything. What I thought was just clumsiness was actually a sign. My muscles were weaker than they should have been. My balance was not what it used to be. And worst of all, I had no idea. The thing is, most people over 70 think a fall is just bad luck. But it is not. It is a signal. Your body is trying to warn you. Maybe your muscles are not as strong as they should be. Maybe your bones are thinning. Maybe your reflexes are slower. But the truth is, there is always a reason. And if you ignore that reason, the next fall could be worse. Maybe it is a broken hip. Maybe it is a head injury. Or maybe, like so many I have known, it is the beginning of a long, painful decline. I have seen it happen to friends. One day they take a fall, and they brush it off. A week later, another fall. Then the cane. Then the walker. Then the wheelchair. And then they are gone. It is not the fall that takes them. It is what comes after. The slow loss of strength. The fear of moving. The sitting too much, the lying down too often, until their bodies forget how to stand at all. But here is the thing. It does not have to be that way. When I fell, I made a choice. I was not going to let that be the beginning of the end. I went to my doctor. I asked questions. I found out that my muscles were weaker because I was not using them enough. I found out that my balance was worse because I had stopped challenging it. And I found out that my bones were thinning because I was not doing enough weight-bearing exercises. So I changed. I started walking more. I practiced standing on one leg while brushing my teeth. I lifted small weights, nothing crazy, just enough to tell my bones to stay strong. And you know what? It worked. A year after that fall, I felt stronger than I had in years. My balance was better. My legs were steadier. I was not afraid to move anymore. And that is the real danger of falling. It is not just the broken bones. It is the fear. The fear that makes you sit more, do less, shrink your world until the only safe place is a chair. That is how people fade away. I have had friends who fell and never stood tall again. They became afraid to walk without holding on to something. Afraid to step outside. Afraid to live. And that fear? It is the real killer. Because once you stop moving, everything else starts to go too. Your heart weakens. Your lungs lose power. Your digestion slows. Your mind gets foggy. And before you know it, you are not just old. You are gone. But you do not have to go down that road. If you have fallen, even just once, do not ignore it. It is not just bad luck. It is a message. Your body is talking to you. Listen to it. Get stronger. Work on your balance. Find out if your medications are making you dizzy. Get your eyes checked. Fix the rugs in your house. Install grab bars in the bathroom. Do whatever it takes to make sure the next fall does not happen. Because the next one might be the one you do not get up from. I know this might sound dramatic. But I have seen too much to sugarcoat it. Falling after 70 is not just part of getting older. It is a red flag. A flashing light. A wake-up call. And I am telling you this because I care. Because I have been there. Because I want you to stand tall, walk strong, and live every single day you have left without fear. Do not wait for the worst to happen. Take control now. Because the best way to survive a fall is to make sure it never happens in the first place. Now, let's clear some common questions. How does social isolation increase the risk of falls, and how can staying active with others help? I have lived long enough to see how the world changes. People used to know their neighbors, visit without calling first, and sit on front porches just to talk. Life had a rhythm, and that rhythm kept us moving. But these days, something has shifted. More and more people, especially the older ones, are living in silence. Social isolation is creeping in like a thief, stealing movement, stealing purpose, and worst of all, stealing strength. What many do not realize is that being alone too much does not just make the heart lonely. It makes the body weak. It makes the legs unsteady. It makes falls more likely, and the more you fall, the faster everything else starts slipping away. I have seen it with my own eyes. A friend of mine, Harold, was the most active man you could imagine. He used to walk to the diner every morning, play cards with the fellas in the afternoon, and do little fix-it jobs for neighbors just to keep himself busy. But then his wife passed. At first, he still kept up with his routines, but little by little, he stopped. First, he skipped the diner. Then, he stopped coming to card games. Eventually, he was just inside all day, sitting in his chair, watching television. That was when he started falling. The first time, he brushed it off. The second time, he used a cane. By the third time, he was in the hospital with a broken hip. And after that, well, he was never the same. People think falls happen because of weak muscles or bad balance, and while that is true, what they do not realize is that isolation makes all of those things worse. When you are alone too much, you move less. Your legs do not get the same work they used to. Your reaction time slows down. Even your confidence starts to disappear. Before you know it, standing up feels like a risk, so you sit more. And sitting more? That is the beginning of the end. The body needs movement like it needs air. Without it, the muscles shrink, the bones weaken, and the balance you once had starts slipping away. Another thing people do not realize is that when you are around others, you move without even thinking about it. You get up to answer the door. You walk across the room to shake a friend's hand. You reach for something to show someone. All of these little movements keep the body awake, keep the reflexes sharp, and keep the legs strong. But when you are alone too much, those small movements stop happening. You do not reach as much. You do not twist and turn. And then, one day, when you do have to move quickly, your body is not ready for it. That is when a fall happens. Staying active with others is not just about having company. It is about keeping the body engaged. When you meet up with people, you stand more, you walk more, and you laugh more. Even the simple act of gesturing while you talk helps keep your body connected to movement. I remember when I joined a local walking group. At first, I thought, well, I do not need this. I can walk on my own. But the truth is, I never would have walked as much by myself. Being around others made me forget that I was even exercising. We talked, we told stories, we laughed, and before I knew it, I had walked farther than I had in years. That is the power of being with people. It pulls you into movement without you even noticing. Another thing about socializing is that it keeps the mind sharp. And a sharp mind is just as important as strong legs when it comes to preventing falls. When you are alone too much, the mind gets foggy. You start to move slower, react slower, and even your sense of awareness dulls. But when you are with others, your mind stays awake. You are thinking, responding, engaging. And that awareness helps you move better. It keeps you from tripping over something because your mind is more alert. It keeps your reflexes sharp so that if you do stumble, you can catch yourself before you hit the ground. I have also learned that people look out for each other in ways we do not always realize. When you are around others, they notice things about you that you might not notice yourself. A friend might say, "You are walking a little slower than usual." Or, I saw you grab that chair for support. Everything okay? Those small observations can be the difference between catching a problem early or ignoring it until it is too late. If Harold had still been coming to the diner, someone would have noticed when his steps became unsteady. Someone would have told him to check his balance, to do some exercises, to be careful. But alone in his house, there was no one to see the change. By the time he realized it himself, the damage had already been done. I know that for some, socializing is not easy. Maybe family lives far away. Maybe old friends have passed on. Maybe mobility is already a problem. But there is always a way. A short walk outside where you wave at a neighbor. A phone call to an old friend where you stand up while you talk instead of sitting the whole time. Joining a local class, even if it is just to watch and listen. Every bit of interaction helps. Every bit of movement matters. Falling is not just about getting old. It is about what happens when you stop moving, stop engaging, stop living. Social isolation is dangerous because it makes everything slow down. The body, the mind, the reflexes. And when all those things slow down, a fall is not just possible. It is inevitable. But being around others, staying active, keeping the mind sharp and the body engaged, that is how you fight back. That is how you stay standing, walking, and living fully for as long as you possibly can. I have seen too many good people fade away because they let loneliness keep them still. I do not want that for you. I want you to move. I want you to laugh. I want you to reach for things, shake hands, walk a little farther than you think you can. Because every step you take with others is a step away from the dangers of falling. And every moment you spend engaged with life is another moment you are truly alive. What are the biggest myths about falling in old age that prevent people from taking action? I have heard just about every excuse in the book when it comes to falling. People like to believe certain things because it makes them feel safe. It is easier to say, "That will not happen to me," than to face the truth. But let me tell you, ignoring the truth does not make it go away. It just makes the consequences worse when reality finally catches up to you. I have seen too many good people suffer because they believe the wrong things about falling. Myths have a way of creeping into people's minds and keeping them from taking action. And the longer they wait, the greater the risk becomes. One of the biggest myths I have heard is that falling is just a normal part of getting old. People say, "Well, that is just how it is. When you get older, you fall." But that is not the truth. Falling is not some unavoidable part of aging. It is a sign that something is wrong. It could be weak muscles, poor balance, bad vision, or even medication side effects. But the fact is, falls do not just happen for no reason. And because there is always a reason, that means there is always something that can be done to prevent them. The problem is that too many people accept falling as if it is out of their hands. So they do nothing, and that is when the real danger begins. Another thing I hear all the time is, "I am careful, so I do not have to worry about falling." Now, I understand the thinking behind this. People believe that if they just move slower or pay attention, they will be fine. But falling is not just about being careful. It is about being strong. It is about having good balance, quick reflexes, and steady legs. I have seen people trip on something small, and instead of catching themselves, they go down like a tree. Not because they were not careful, but because their bodies were not ready to react. Being careful is not enough. You have to keep your body prepared for the unexpected. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard, "I have never fallen before, so I do not need to worry about it." This is one of the most dangerous beliefs of all. Just because something has not happened yet does not mean it will never happen. A first fall can come out of nowhere, and when it does, it can change everything. I once knew a man named George who had never fallen in his life. He was strong, independent, and never thought twice about his balance. Then one day, he slipped in his kitchen. Just one fall, and he broke his hip. After that, he was never the same. He went from walking freely to using a cane, then a walker, and eventually, he just stopped walking altogether. One fall was all it took. Thinking that you are safe just because it has not happened yet is a mistake that can cost you everything. Another thing people like to say is, "I am too old to exercise, so there is nothing I can do." Now, this one makes me shake my head. I do not care if you are 60, 70, or 90. There's always something you can do to keep yourself strong. You do not have to run marathons or lift heavy weights. Even small movements make a difference. Standing up from a chair without using your hands, practicing balancing on one foot for a few seconds, or simply walking a little more each day. All of these things help keep your body strong and your reflexes sharp. The worst thing you can do is stop moving. Because once you stop, everything starts to go downhill. One of the saddest myths I have heard is, "If I fall, I will just get up and be fine." People assume they will be able to pick themselves up like they did when they were younger. But the truth is, many people who fall cannot get up on their own. I have known people who fell and had to wait hours for someone to find them. And even if they were able to get up, they were never quite the same after. A fall can shake your confidence. It can make you afraid to move, afraid to go outside, afraid to live. And that fear? That is what takes people down faster than anything. Because when you start fearing movement, you move less. And when you move less, you get weaker. And when you get weaker, the next fall is even worse. Another thing people tell themselves is, "I do not need to make changes to my home. I know where everything is." But falls happen in familiar places all the time. It does not matter if you have lived in the same house for 50 years. A loose rug, a small step, or a dimly lit hallway can still take you down. Simple changes can make a huge difference. Removing clutter, securing rugs, installing grab bars in the bathroom. These things are not about admitting weakness. They are about being smart. I have also heard people say, "Using a cane or walker means I am giving up." This is one of the most stubborn myths of all. People see a cane or a walker as a sign of weakness. But in reality, using the right support can keep you moving longer. I knew a woman named Margaret who refused to use a cane because she did not want to look old. She said she did not need it. But then she fell. And after that, she did not just need a cane. She needed a walker. And not long after that, she needed a wheelchair. If she had used the cane when she first needed it, she might have kept walking for many more years. Holding on to pride when it comes to balance is a dangerous thing. One of the most frustrating myths I have heard is, "Doctors cannot do anything about falling, so there is no point in bringing it up." This could not be further from the truth. A doctor can check for underlying issues, adjust medications that might be making you dizzy, and recommend exercises to improve strength and balance. But if you never mention it, they might not know you are at risk until it is too late. I always tell people, if you have fallen even once, tell your doctor. And if you feel unsteady, do not wait for a fall to happen before getting help. The truth is, falling is not just something that happens. It is something that can be prevented. But believing the wrong things keeps people from taking action. And waiting until after a fall to do something is like waiting until after a fire to install a smoke alarm. The time to act is before it happens, not after. I have seen too many people lose their strength, their independence, and even their lives because they believe these myths. Do not be one of them. Face the truth, take action, and do whatever it takes to keep yourself standing. Because once you fall, getting back up is never as easy as you think. If someone has already fallen, what immediate steps should they take to prevent it from happening again? I have seen it happen too many times. Someone takes a fall, and at first, they try to brush it off. They say, "I am fine. It was just a little slip." But inside, something has changed. They start moving a little slower. They hesitate when they get up from a chair. They reach for things more carefully. And worst of all, they start to fear falling again. That fear is what does the real damage. Because once you let fear take over, you move less. And when you move less, your body weakens. And when your body weakens, the next fall becomes even more likely. But it does not have to be that way. There are things you can do, steps you can take, to make sure the next fall does not happen. But you have to act now. Not later. Not after another close call. Right now. The first thing to do after a fall is to understand why it happened. A fall is not just bad luck. There is always a reason. Maybe your legs were too weak to catch you in time. Maybe you got dizzy when you stood up. Maybe your foot caught on something that should not have been there. Or maybe you were not paying attention and moved too quickly. Whatever the reason, you have to find it. Because if you do not, the same thing will happen again. Once you know why you fell, the next step is to check yourself. And I do not just mean looking for bruises. I mean really checking. Are you feeling more unsteady than usual? Do you get dizzy when you stand up? Do your legs feel weaker than they used to? Have you been feeling more tired lately? These little changes in the body are warnings. If something feels off, do not ignore it. See a doctor. Get your vision checked. Have your medications reviewed. Sometimes, a simple change in medication or wearing the right pair of glasses can make all the difference. But you will never know if you do not take the time to check. After you have looked at yourself, the next step is to look at your surroundings. Most falls happen at home. And the worst part? The things that cause them are usually small, simple things that could have been fixed. A rug that slides when you step on it. A loose electrical cord lying across the floor. A dimly lit hallway where you cannot see the step clearly. These are traps waiting to take you down. And the only way to stop them is to fix them before they get you again. If there is a rug that moves, get rid of it. If the lighting is too low, get brighter bulbs. If the stairs do not have a handrail, install one. It is not about making your home look nice. It is about making sure you can move safely inside of it. Now, this next part is the one that most people ignore. But it is the most important. You have to get stronger. If you have already fallen once, that means your body was not strong enough to keep you upright. And if you do not work on your strength, the next fall will come even sooner. But getting stronger does not mean you have to start lifting heavy weights or doing hard exercises. It starts with small things. Standing up from a chair without using your hands. Balancing on one foot for a few seconds while holding on to something sturdy. Walking a little farther than usual each day. These small actions tell your muscles, wake up. Stay strong. And when your muscles listen, your body becomes steadier. Another thing that helps is practicing balance. People think balance is something you either have or you do not. But balance is a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained. Start by standing with your feet closer together while brushing your teeth. Try walking in a straight line by placing one foot in front of the other, like walking on a tightrope. Even just turning your head side to side while walking can help train your body to stay steady. The more you challenge your balance, the better it gets. And the better it gets, the less likely you are to fall again. One of the hardest things after a fall is dealing with the fear. It sneaks up on you in ways you do not expect. One day, you hesitate before stepping off a curb. The next, you start avoiding certain places in your home. Before you know it, you are sitting more than you are moving. And that is when real trouble starts. Fear of falling leads to less movement. Less movement leads to weaker muscles. Weaker muscles lead to another fall. It is a cycle that too many people get trapped in. But the way to break it is to keep moving. Even if you are scared. Even if your legs feel shaky. The only way to rebuild confidence is to prove to yourself that you can still move safely. Take small steps. Hold on to something if you need to. But do not let fear keep you sitting in one place. Because the longer you sit, the harder it becomes to get up again. Another thing that helps is not going through it alone. Talk to someone. Let a friend or family member know that you fell. If you keep it to yourself, you will start carrying the burden alone. And that burden will turn into worry, and worry will turn into hesitation. But when you share what happened, you open the door for help. Maybe someone can walk with you for a while until you feel steadier. Maybe someone can check your home for hazards you did not notice. Maybe someone can simply remind you that you are not alone in this. One of the worst things you can do after a fall is pretend it never happened. I have seen too many people make that mistake. They act like nothing is wrong. They do not tell anyone. They do not change anything. And then, sure enough, they fall again. And the next time, they are not so lucky. But I have also seen people take a fall as a wake-up call. They start paying attention. They start moving more, getting stronger, making changes to their home. And those are the people who keep walking, keep living, and keep their independence. A fall is not just a fall. It is a warning. A message from your body telling you that something needs to change. And the best time to make that change is right now. Not after another fall. Not after the damage is done. Right now. Because the truth is, you have more control than you think. You can take action. You can get stronger. You can keep yourself steady. But only if you decide to do something about it. And I hope, with everything I have learned in my long years, that you do. Because once you take the right steps, you will not just be preventing a fall. You will be taking back control of your life. If you liked today's discussion, don't forget to like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated with every video we release. And yes, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Every comment is special to us. Your feedback helps us improve further. We'll continue to meet you in every new video on this channel, so until next time, take care.